Hi guys, it's Mario. Just wanted to take some time today and talk about somebody I read when I was 13. Didn't realize the deep impact it would have in my life. It was about a man named Gautama. Now I might be saying that wrong. I come from the West. It's a little bit hard for me to say sometimes, but Gautama was the person that we know as the Buddha, and I grew up in a Christian Catholic community, very Judaistic anyway, right? I mean, in that sense, it all kind of derives from the Torah, But anyways, I come from that Judaic Christian background, and it really influenced a lot of what I thought about the Buddha or Gautama, His true name is Gautama, and those that truly know what the story is, you don't really call him the Buddha, because essentially the Buddha's within you, but it's within us all, Every blade of grass, every butterfly that I could see flying in my garden right now, every leaf, every piece of root, every piece of sand, the walls behind me, everything is this Buddha, It's all Buddha. It's a very simple thing to see, but it's very complicated at the same time. Things that kind of helped me put things together were the Hermetics, the seven principles that I talked about before, because essentially the world is formless, That's at least what Gautama found sitting under the Bodhiva tree. I know I'm messing that one up, but he just sat under a tree. Not even sure how long, to be honest with you guys. Might have been 7 days or 12 days, 13. One of them special numbers, but it doesn't matter how long he sat there. He sat there for a very what we would call a long time. And he slowed himself down to the point where he connected to something inside, and that thing that he found inside of himself was what he called the Buddha, and he came back. But anyways, Gautama was a prince, lived a very sheltered life, had food, wasn't allowed out of like the city walls, he wasn't allowed to see suffering, he wasn't allowed where guess we would call them peasants, right? People that weren't of royalty status, workers and laborers and such. But he was never allowed to see suffering, and grows up a little bit and decides to leave and see the world, and sees hungry people and sees people just going mad, sees a lot of suffering, which, people starving and stuff makes sense, but then he starts even seeing that successful people are suffering, which is a very interesting point of view, which might not make sense to you, but, when you're working that 40-hour job, you still feel like, it's taking over your life, but you still have this freedom to move around, right? But then they offer you this manager role or something because, you're doing really well. So now you got to put in more time, you're going to get more money. But I think a lot of times we don't end up more happy, we end up getting that fancier car. We end up stuck in all these desires, dukkha, dukkha, and those desires essentially is what caused us all this pain, It's because now you're kind of stuck at that job that you don't necessarily like, you know what I mean? It's But now you got to pay that car payment. You have to do these things because you adjusted your lifestyle to this identity that you probably never needed. But you know, you saw suffering even in successful people anyway. The merchants, the everything, you know. Maybe they were worried about the shipment coming in, you know, back in those days. There was a lot of wars and stuff, you know, stealing of spices and whatnot. So, you know, maybe the merchants were just stressed out from, you know, worrying if business is going to keep going, you know, which I guess is kind of where we're at now with this COVID-19 stuff, you know. It's but anyways, you know, he sees all this suffering and stuff, and he just doesn't understand it. You know, he questions it, so goes and sits under the tree. That time it wasn't even called meditation, I don't think, you know. A lot of people think that you got to do all this crazy stuff with meditation, and my experience, the more you try to meditate, the worse it gets, you know. You just got to sit there and breathe. Focus inside yourself, you know. Um, Let go of everything you think you are, right? I mean, yes, you live in this 3D world, and yes, you live in this place where you may be a teacher, you may be a doctor, but you're not that occupation 24/7, right? You do that play, you play this game for so long in a day, right? So you can't be that role, first of all, you know, and then the harder one, which a lot of people can't see, is that you got to be careful with your culture too, you know. It definitely can suck you into a lot of religious beliefs, a lot of ethnicity beliefs, a lot of racial beliefs that don't necessarily suit you, you know. Even the idea that we're a human race, it kind of labeling us humans separates us from everything else too, you know. I mean, I get it. It's a label, it's needed while we're here to identify ourselves that we're smarter animals, but you know, what is essentially human, you know? It's just part of the experience here. We're no better than that blade of grass that we step on, you know? It's the grass is also experiencing itself, you know? And that's one of the first misconceptions people need to realize. Buddha, Gautama, is not a god, you know? If you want to say it's a god, it's the god that's within us all, because then it goes back to the Hermetics, which, you know, for me was beautiful connections in my life, that these two different cultures can come up and say the same thing, right? The all is mind. So we're just created inside of the creator, you know? We're the formless that came here in form to experience a formed life, you know, which we start saying, oh my God, we don't exist, or what's going on with this Eastern belief? And, you know, maybe to some degree we don't, you know, maybe that's where all the ego is and all the stuff we think in our mind, because, you know, it's a very fragile thing that we need to identify with, but you're not your mind, you know, you really aren't. I mean, mostly everything you think is stuff you've found from other people, you know. Anything you look at or anyone you judge or kind of enjoy life with, you are projecting yourself into them, you know. And then you start figuring out, well, you're just a projection of everyone else. They tell you you're funny, so what do? You act more like a clown, right? It's a it's a catch-22 or something they would say, you know. But you start becoming what other people think of you. It's interesting when you hit that point, because then you could go sit at your house under the tree and just start thinking, who am I? It's really all you got to do is breathe and think, who am I beyond the I, Who am I beyond everything that I think I am? Our essence leaves the body, the brain and the body stay here, so to say that you're kind of your brain is just, doesn't make any connection to anything. It's a part of you that's going to leave, Definitely the brain's important to this experience here, but beyond this, we don't take it with us, so how much of the experience can it really be? Um, but anyways, I'll leave you with that. That's Gautama and his wisdom, He wasn't a god. He was a man. He gave something a label. That's what we do in the formed world, but true Buddhahood, true Buddha is within every living thing in life. Nothing is without the Buddha. But anyways, I'll leave you guys with that. Namaste. Have a good day. Bye.